This is Unit 1-5, Significant Figures, Part 1. So we're going to learn how to recognize and use significant figures, and our question is why? Why do we use significant figures? The first thing we're going to look at is there are two types of numbers in the universe. There's what we call exact numbers, and these are numbers that can be defined, or in other words, they're a result from a count. An example of this is if I were to say there are a dozen eggs, dozen is defined as 12. You can't have 12.1 eggs in a dozen or 11.9. Or if I were to count the students in my classroom, I would have 32 students. I couldn't have 32.4 students. Alright, these are exact numbers. There's no uncertainty. Alright, they can't be simplified, and these are the numbers we use mostly in math class. And here are some more examples. Alright, so the other type of number are measured numbers, and these are kind of like the opposite of exact numbers. Alright, measured numbers we get by making a measurement using a device. Alright, and when we say device, we're talking like balance, graduated cylinder, ruler, thermometer. So we're making measurements, we're writing down numbers. So if I go home and I step on my scale and it says 150.5 pounds, that does not mean I'm exactly 150.5 pounds. That could be 150.51. That could be 150.48. Alright, it's not an exact number. Because of that, there's always some uncertainty. The number's being estimated. And because of this uncertainty, we have to use significant figures, and these are the numbers mostly used in science class. Alright, so what are significant figures? Significant figures are the digits in a number that talk about or contribute to the precision of the measurement. So significant figures are used to look at the precision of a measurement, and there are rules for using significant figures, and here are the 5 rules. You don't have to memorize them, you just know how to use them. So let's look at some examples. These first few examples that I'm going to look at aren't in your notes. Just pay close attention. If you want to, you can write them down. Alright, so let's look at this. If I look at this number, 24.76, I want to figure out how many significant figures there are. When we say for figures, we're also talking about digits. So first of all, if I look, there are 4 digits in this number. So I have to look at each of these digits and figure out if they're significant. So the most significant figures I can have in this particular number is going to be 4. So if I look at rule 1, it says any non-zero digit is always significant. Well, all 4 of these are non-zeros, so that's easy. That makes all 4 of them significant. Alright, let's look at this number, 20.76. Once again, I got 4 digits, but now I have this 0 here. So let's take a look at this example. Alright, rule 1, any non-zero digit always significant. So the 2, the 7, the 6 are significant. Alright, what about the 0? So when I look at a 0, I got to figure out where is it located. And there's 3 places it can be located: in the front, the middle, or the end. In this case, the 0 is in the middle. If I look at rule 2, it says zeros in the middle are always significant. So it is significant. That gives me all 4 digits. Alright, same thing, but now I've added a few digits. Now we have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 digits. Rule 1, any non-zero digits, so that takes care of the 2, the 7, the 6. But now I got zeros located in different places. So let's look at this first 0 here. And we just said that the 0, if the 0 is in the middle, rule 2 says it's significant. So So these 4 are significant. Now these zeros, if you look at these zeros, where they're located. These zeros are located in the front to the beginning. So zeros in the front beginning are never significant. So now, even though these zeros aren't significant, they still have value. They're placeholders. We have to put them in the number. So even though these aren't significant, remember, alright, you still have to use them as placeholders. So in this case, there are 4 significant figures, but we need these zeros still. Alright, 24.70, we have 4 digits. Non-zeros are significant. That makes these first 3 significant. Now what about this 0? Now this 0 is located at the end of the number. Alright, so what's tricky here is, remember, zeros in the front, never significant. Zeros in the middle, always significant. Zeros at the end, sometimes significant, sometimes they're not. So if we look at rule 4, it says that the 0 has to be at the end and to the right of the decimal. So here's my decimal. So the 0 is to the right of it. So since the 0 is to the right of the decimal and at the end, it makes it significant. So now I have 4 significant figures. Alright, same digits, but what's happened is I moved the decimal place. It was right here, but now it's over here. So now the actual decimal place is right here. So what has happened here is now the 0 is at the end, but to the left of the decimal. So let's look at our rules. So rule 1 gives us non-zeros, no big deal. Let's look at this 0. It's at the end, but now it's to the left of the decimal. So zeros that are at the end but to the left of the decimal are not significant. Do I still need it as a placeholder? Yes. But is it significant? As far as my measurement goes, no. In this case, I only have 3. Alright, so I want you to pause, take a look at this number, and I want you to figure out how many significant figures there are. Alright, hopefully hit pause and try this on your own. Alright, the one's obviously significant. These zeros in the front. Now, this is where people like to get confused. Is yes, these zeros are to the right of the decimal. Alright, but they're in the front. So remember, anything in the front, doesn't matter where it's located, is not significant. These zeros are at the end of the number and to the right of the decimal. So they have to be both at the end and to the right. These are significant. So there's 3. Let's do some more examples here. Alright, I want you to not look at the answers, try these on your own, and then look at the answers. So hit pause, here's the answer key. I want you to see how you do. Alright, hopefully you did alright. Let's move on. Let's learn how to round significant figures. Alright, so here's my number. 827,461,200. I want to round this to only one significant figure. So how I round is I always start from the left and I work my way to the right. So I'm going to start over here on the left, work my way over to the right. So the first significant figure I come across is the 8. Alright, so then I'm going to look at the next number to the right of it. This 2. If this number is 5 or greater, I'm going to round this number up. Since this is a 2, I keep the 8 the same. So there's my one significant figure. Okay, but this is not my answer. I have to use these other digits as placeholders. So what I had to do is change all these to zeros. 8 and 800 million are not close to being the same. So I have to turn the rest of these to zeros. Why? They're placeholders, but if you notice, none of these zeros are significant. Alright, let's look at let's round the same number to two significant figures. So I start to the left, I keep the 8, I keep the 2. This time I look at the number to the right. And this number is 5 or greater, so I'm going to round this number up to a 3. I only round one number, and that's the last number I'm going to keep. So I keep the 8, the 2 becomes a 3. Here are my 2 sig figs, but I have to put these other zeros as placeholders. Alright, I want you to try the other examples on your own. So hit pause and try these examples. Alright, so hopefully you tried the other examples on your own, and these are the answers you should have gotten. Now let's try some rounding on the other side of the decimal. Alright, so 0.0031904, I want 1 sig fig. Now I start to the left and work my way to the right. These zeros are not significant. I have to write them as placeholders, but the first significant digit I come to is a 3. So then I look at the number to the right. That number doesn't round the 3 up, so then I put a 3. Now, when I was to the left of the decimal, I had to take these other digits and put zeros. But if I put zeros down here, what happens? These zeros are significant. Why are these zeros significant? Because they're to the right of the decimal and trailing. So I do not want to add those zeros. So when I'm to the right of the decimal, I simply just write the amount of sig figs I want. Alright, let's write this as 2 sig figs. So once again, these zeros are not significant, but they're placeholders. I have to write them. Alright, and so then I keep the 3, I keep the 1, but this 9 causes the 1 to round up, so I get 3 2. Alright, I want you to try the last example on your own. So hit pause and see what you get. Alright, so hopefully you got that. Alright, so now there's some other examples I want you to do on your own. So hit pause, try those on your own, and then I'll put up the answer keys and so you can see how you did. Alright, so hopefully you did well. Now there is one tricky one here. Well, I guess there's two tricky ones. One a little more tricky than the other one. So let's look at this one here. The 8 causes a 9 to round up. But when we have a 9, that rounds that up to a 10, so it causes it to be 150. And I have to keep the 0 here because I need 3 significant figures, and this one is significant. The other tricky one is over here, F. Obviously this number rounds to 1,000. Alright, but how am I going to write 1,000 as 3 significant figures? I cannot put a 0.0 behind it because then this is significant, this is significant, all of these are significant. That's 5 significant figures, that's too many. So anytime I have issues with significant figures, what I want to do is first write the number in scientific notation. So how I'm going to write this in scientific notation is, the decimal's here, I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3 places. So I'm going to have 1, 0, 0, 1 times 10 to the third. So then I just remember when we have scientific notation, I ignore this times 10 part and I just look at the number, and right now I have 4. So how am I going to get 3? I simply get rid of the 1. So I get rid of the 1, and I just simply have 1.00 times 10 to the third. So anytime you have significant figure issues, if you don't have enough or don't have too many, write it in scientific notation and work from there.